And so as we hear each one of these names, and there may be others that you would like to hold in prayer, let us remember to see their wholeness and well-being, not the difficulties in their lives. For the spirit that they are is powerful, creative, strong, wise, and loving, and able to meet any challenge. And so we see each one radiant with divine life, with health and peace, joy and abundance. And so it is. Amen. Well, today I wanted to address something that came to me as I was thinking about what to talk about today, and that is spiritual do-overs. Did you know that through God's grace, we have something called, I like to call, spiritual do-overs? And I wanted to give you an example of that, which was very meaningful in my life. So I grew up in a small town in LA. That's Lower Alabama, for those of you who don't know that. In a little town of 500 people, and everybody knew everybody, you know. Well, as it would happen as I was in high school, my grandfather became very ill. And we didn't have any hospital in our little town, and we didn't have a clinic even, or even a nurse or doctor. So my grandfather had diabetes, he had a heart condition, and he was a grouchy old man. He was really a loving man, though. He didn't verbalize it very much. You know, he didn't want to talk about his feelings. And so he was used to being the boss. And he got so bad, though, that he needed somebody to be with him. And so we didn't have anybody. So at 16, I went to live with him and take care of him. Now, this was less than a mile from where my parents lived and my sister. So we were in communication with one another, and I felt so grown up. You know, they were taking care of him. And I did love him dearly. And like I said, though, he was sometimes grouchy, and especially because he didn't feel good. He really didn't want to give up his driving. Anybody relate to that? You know, nobody really wants to do that. Love that independence. So I would have these tug of wars with the steering wheel of his truck saying, no, you can't drive. I have to drive you. Things like that would happen. And so I found myself at times losing patience with him. He was a very stubborn person, and he didn't feel good. And of course, that made it worse. So here I was at 16 with this responsibility, and I found myself getting irritated with him. And so when he passed, I felt guilty. I wished I had been more patient. I wished I had been more compassionate. And I knew he loved me. And as a matter of fact, when he passed, and that was in the country this was back in the 60s, early 60s, mid-60s, they would bring the body, the casket, into the house for viewing. So I see some nodding heads. Somebody knows about that. So I was in his room cleaning up, and people were going to be coming over, you know, and all of a sudden, I had this overwhelming sense of love, and the bedroom filled with this golden light. And I knew that he was telling me goodbye. And I knew he was telling me, I love you. So I felt his love and forgiveness. But it was harder for me to forgive myself because I felt like I could have done better. So many years later, when I was in my late 40s, my mother, actually I was around 50, 51 at the time, my mother got ill. And so I came to live with her and take care of her. She was diagnosed with lung cancer and given 6 months to live. And you know what that's like. When that doctor says you've got X to live, a lot of people take it in their consciousness, and that's what happens. So if that ever happens to you, you don't have to believe what they say. I see some more heads nodding. Yes, in fact, I had a great aunt who I was very fond of, and they removed 2/3 of her stomach and said, well, we'll give you 5 years. And that was when she was in her 30s, and she lived to 86. So they wanted her to come back so they could study her and find out how come she was still alive. And she said, no way. I am not going back to those doctors. So when I became caregiver for my mother, I realized that I had an opportunity for a spiritual do-over. Here was an opportunity because I was way more, more mature. I don't know if it's that way more mature. I was more mature. I had had more life experience. I had had unity teachings. And so I was a different person than I was when I was 16. And so I was able to be more patient with her and told her so much and so often how much I loved her and wanted to support her. Did I lose my temper sometimes? Yes, but way less than I did before. And I was able to be there with her and support her. And so a friend of mine gave me a certificate that said, Reverend Virginia, Doctorate of Motherology. Because by golly, I just watched everything the caregivers were doing and everything I was doing, and I cooked her all of her favorite foods and took her everywhere. I did my best to make those last months good for her. And I felt I had been successful when I went to get the death certificate at the doctor's office, and the receptionist there, who was also a nurse, said to me, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and your mother had the best. So that made me feel really good. So it's not just in things like that, although that for me was a very profound experience, to have such a huge opportunity again, to be able to do over, an opportunity to come from love and patience and caring. And so there are other ways too that we may have do-overs. You know, you may find yourself losing a job, and then you may panic. That happened to me. I lost my job and when I was in my 30s, and you know, I didn't have any backup. I was really afraid of, like, what can I do here, you know? This was before I got into Unity. I managed to make it through. Friends brought me food and, you know, helped me find interviews, and, you know, so I got through that. So later on, I lost my job again, and this time I had the Unity teachings to support me, so I didn't go into fear, and I just visualized the new job and visualized myself employed. I wound up being self-employed, but that was okay. It worked out. That surprised me. You never know what's going to happen, right? So whether it's an illness or perhaps problems in the family, whatever your challenge is, if you find yourself not really being in, how should we say, harmony with the Unity teachings and living your faith, maybe you got anxious about something or depressed about something, angry about something. We all do. This is part of our human experience. We have these emotions, and there's nothing wrong with having those emotions because this is part of the human experience. But maybe we find ourselves going too far into those ego reactions, those reactionary behaviors, and we go, oh, why did I do that? Why did I lose my temper? Why did I become afraid? Why can't I let go of this resentment? You know, these are all challenges that we have in this human experience. And we need to remember that it's okay to have those feelings because it's a part of the human experience. But we also don't want the reactionary mind to take over our lives, because then we wind up saying harmful things. We hurt ourselves by hanging on to resentments. We hurt ourselves by staying in fear. There are many ways that we may find ourselves being reactionary just because of programming from early childhood. And so we all have these issues. And so, but there are ways and, you know, tools that we know to help us get over that reactionary behavior, to let go of those fear-based beliefs that have made us reactionary and that keep us from peace and keep us from joy. One of those resources is A Course in Miracles. So how many of you have read or been some participation in Course in Miracles? Right. So in the chapter 31 of the Course in Miracles, the title is Choose Again. Trials are lessons that we have failed to learn, presented once again. So where you made a faulty choice before, now you can make a better one and thus escape all pain that you would choose before has brought to you, which is a beautiful poetic way of saying you get a spiritual do-over. In every difficulty, all distress, each perplexity, Christ calls to you and gently says, "My beloved, choose again." He would not leave you one source of pain unhealed, nor any image left to veil the truth. He would remove all misery from you, whom God created as an altar unto joy. Yes, we are created as an altar unto joy. We are meant to be joyful in our lives. He would not leave you comfortless, but would release your mind from everything that hides His face from you. And in those difficult times, sometimes we feel separated from God, but we know in truth we cannot be, for we exist in God, and God exists in us and as us. His holiness is yours because He is the only power that is real in you. Not the ego, not the personality, not the humanness. His strength is yours because He is the self that God created as His only Son. And this teaching of the Course has been really important to me, and especially this choose again, choose and choose again. In every moment, we have the ability to choose again. We have the moment to take a breath, pause, and recenter ourselves, and remember who we are, and remember the wonderful spiritual tools and skills that we have to do an about-face when we've forgotten that we're okay and everything's all right. Choose and choose again. When I was in ministerial school, one of our faculty members had cancer, and she had a tumor in her abdomen. And she went to the doctor and received this diagnosis. And she said she was stunned, when she walked out of the examining room, and she heard this voice in her head that she knew was the voice of the fear-based ego. She knew it was the voice of her own fear that said, "You're going to die." And yes, oftentimes when we hear the C word, we think that that's going to mean death. And so in that moment, though, she heard another voice. And the other voice said to her, make sure I get this right, "This is your moment of choice. Do you really believe there's only one presence and power in your life?" And in that moment, she realized that what she needed to do was to go into prayer immediately. So she called Silent Unity immediately. And they prayed with her, and she felt herself becoming still and calm again. She came back to her center. That quickly, she was able to make a turnaround. And so she committed herself at that point to stay in peace no matter what happened. And that's a big commitment, because in those moments we don't know. Maybe it is my time to go. Maybe this is my exit. I don't know what's going to come out of this. But she had the surgery, the tumor was removed, and it was completely healed. But she knew that the moment that she changed her mind, the moment that she chose to hear the voice of her higher self saying, "This is your moment of choice. Remember to choose." And so that's true for all of us when we are in difficult times. And a lot of times, of course, we don't want to go through these difficult things. However, oftentimes we also find out when we are really deeply challenged is when we find ourselves being more inspired as we turn to God within us as our resource, that we may have a new awakening of what's really important in life. There may be many ways that we find out we were more loved than we realized and more supported than we realized, or that we were more aware of that God presence because of what we were going through. I had my first course teacher said that to us in our group that, fear is what drives us to God. And that voice in me said, no, but yes, yes, yes. when we get in difficulty, when we're afraid. Yes, it may be that fear that drives us to connect with God. Of course, we were always connected, but we're not in our awareness. To be aware of our oneness and connection with God. And so, just like that minister, the faculty member there at the school, she knew that she could choose again. And she chose prayer, which is always a great first step in any situation. So there's some other skills that I want to talk about, some do-overs, because it fits right in with our daily word today of releasing what no longer serves us, releasing the fear, the doubt, the resentment, whatever it is that is limiting us. And I'll bet most of you here have already read this book. So who has read and studied The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz? Yes, all right. So if you haven't, if you didn't raise your hand at home or in here, it is required reading. And you will be blessed by reading it. And you know what I love about it? It's so simple. It's so simple. 4 ideas that can change our lives completely if we just practice them. What's our principle number 5? A unity principle number 5? Huh? No? Oh my goodness. Okay, principle number 5, and never forget this one. Doesn't matter how much you know, doesn't matter how much you pray, if you don't walk the talk, you're not living your truth. So that means, number 5 means, use these principles in your life. Use them. Don't just think about them, read about them, talk about them, do them. Okay, so here's 4 things to do as well. So the 4 agreements are, first, of course, is to be impeccable with your word. What does that mean? That means don't talk badly about yourself or anyone else. It means to express truth and love instead. So be impeccable with your word. That's a big one. And it makes a big difference if we're aware of what we are thinking and saying. The second one is don't take anything personally. Oh, hello. That one can be really hard, can it? If we have any self-esteem issues, and probably most of us do to some degree, you know, you get that button pushed and you feel rejected and you feel hurt and you take it personally. Well, guess what? It's not about you. It's their reactionary mind. It's their inner pain that is making them say something that maybe hurt you, that you take personally. We don't have to take it. We don't have to take it. We don't have to accept that poison. So don't take it personally. Don't take anything personally. And then don't make assumptions. Oh, there's another good one. You know, the ego mind always wants to explain everything. Well, she didn't call me because she really doesn't care whether I go with her to the movie or not. Or whatever other thing the ego dreams up to make us feel rejected or makes us feel left out or not good enough. Because for most of us, not good enough is our bottom line belief from childhood. You are good enough. You are more than good enough. Right? Good. I see some heads nodding. This is a good sign. Okay. And then the last one is do your best. So what does it mean to do your best? Well, our best varies from moment to moment. I remember once being with my sister, and her son was about, 5 or 6 years old, and they had a dog and a cat, and so one day I'm standing there and watching, and they have one of these houses that you can go around in a circle in it, and so here comes the kid, the dog, the cat, and some friends of his, and all running through the house screaming and yelling, and I'm just standing there watching it. Well, it wasn't my circus. And she says, "How can you stand there and be calm?" And I thought, and I said, I meditate a lot. So even if I meditate a lot, though, I lose it at times also. Everybody does. Even Don Miguel, in his book, talks about, sometimes I get off track. Sometimes I get upset, But what really counts is how long does it take me to get back to center? Am I going to dwell on what's upsetting me, or am I going to choose again and take a breath, say a prayer, take some time out, get centered? So we have these wonderful spiritual tools that do help us to do our best. And this is not easy. These are fundamental changes in core behaviors. And so Don Miguel Ruiz says, be easy on yourself. Nobody's going to do this perfectly. He didn't even do it perfectly. But it's okay. We do the best we can do at any moment. And we read these ideas, we study them, we meditate on them, we think about them. You might even put a little card with them on you. You know, I've read that book a few times and practiced it, and I never get tired of the reminder of these 4 agreements. And in the book, he also says that it takes a strong will to do what needs to be done to maintain a practice of these 4 agreements that are life-changing. Because what we're doing is letting go of the past, letting go of fear and negativity and any other thing that is blocking us. But it does take a strong will, not human willpower, but our divine power of will, the executive power within us that determines the direction of our intentions and our attention, which I understand is the power of the month. So, Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, said, the idea of giving up the personal will for divine will does not mean being weak. Rather, it means being strong and using our will to act in the best and highest way. Not the personal will that may want to push through something, but divine will that is tempered with love and wisdom. All of these 4 agreements and the Course in Miracles, Choose Again, and this are spiritual do-overs. They are emotional detox of letting go of the negativity that we have been ingrained with. So every day, you might want to begin your day by saying, today I will do my best to live from my Christ self, from my higher self. I like to start my day as I wake up before I get out of bed to say, I am so grateful for this day, for this opportunity to express who I am as a powerful, loving, creative, spiritual being. That is my attention for the day. And then sometimes I might add the Eric Butterworth Namaste. If you haven't read that, I think it's on page 50 in Discover the Power Within You, is when I get out of bed and go to brush my teeth or go into the bathroom and look at myself in the mirror and say, Namaste. I behold the divinity in you, Virginia. I behold your strength. I behold your light. You are strong and capable of meeting any blessing, for my day is full of golden opportunities, and there is that in me which is able to meet every situation and overcome it and be blessed by it. Namaste. I behold the divinity in myself. So I hope some of these ideas will help you to recognize the opportunity for spiritual do-overs, the opportunity to choose and choose again. Just a reminder of who you are, and that we aren't just merely human, but we are powerful spiritual beings merely having a human experience, a precious, sacred human experience. God bless you. Thank you.